We are going to close our cloud track for today with the last presentation, but not the least, I would say. I see Cornel here, Cornel Fatulescu, who is directeur technique chez Pentalog.
Actually, I'm here in order to represent Agile Hub, an IT association that, together with Camellia, we have built in Brașov. Full screen. I am co-founder at Agile Hub. Our mission is to offer free education to IT specialists in Brașov and also to develop the Brașov as an IT center. And I am here to speak about a special period in my life. I think it's better if we wait also for the others. Just a second. Poți să-mi pui la... Hai. Și mai bine. Mersi. Da, da, da. Da. N-are? Stai. Ok. Is it better? Alo. No. Okay. Do you hear me? Much better. For me, anyway. So, are there any English speakers only? Okay. Okay. Please join. Okay. So, I'll start again. My name is Cornel Fatulescu. I'm a co-founder at Agile Hub, and I'm here to speak about a special period in my life where I was on the edge of my career, at least as I was seeing it at that time. I had money. I loved doing shopping. I spent tremendous money on shopping. I loved partying, and I was a workaholic. And I said, I have all this, and I'm going to search for a new challenge in my life. And I said, I'm going to search a partner. There must be someone out there who loves to do shopping. And I found it was very easy. In fact, it was a quick process. And I said, I need a new challenge. And we stepped to a level 2 in our relationship and said, I'm going to be a father. And I wanted to be a special father because it was this trend of not being too violent in your education and everything. I heard about it, and I said, okay, I'm not going to do that with my kids. So I'm going to be different. Until one day, when in practice things went a little bit wrong, different. And with my older child, now I have 2, and yes, I am married. When I was doing the bath, his bath, he said, well, I didn't sleep at noon, like that wasn't obvious. And I was doing my normal management stuff, like, okay, carrot and stick management. You didn't do that, I'm going to punish you. So tomorrow we are not going to go in the park. And his reaction surprised me, shocked me more. So he started crying and said, I'm never going to tell you again. And that was a moment, yeah, that's me feeling awful out there. And it happens too often, I think, as a father. I'm still learning. But at that moment, I've asked myself, hey, wait a minute, maybe the way I'm working right now, my reactions as a manager, normal manager, are not as good as I thought they are. So maybe my people with whom I'm working with, they are hiding things for me because I'm doing this management style. And from that moment, I always believed, in fact, that if something is working good at home, it must work also at work with my colleagues, partners. And in the reverse way, also, if something is working perfectly at work, it must work also in the relationship with my family, with my friends, and so on. But at that moment, I have stated these rules, and I guided my development through them. And I started learning what management all about, and there is a huge body of knowledge regarding that. I didn't know. I wasn't aware. I thought management is like being normal, acting normal. I know how to speak with people. That should be all. I've learned about theory X and theory Y. Did you heard of them? These are 2 extremes. And in one extreme, managers believe, they are convinced that their employees cannot self-perform, they cannot self-organize, they're not motivated, and they will not work if they can. In the other extreme, managers believe that if employees have the right environment, they can self-perform, they can self-organize, and they can motivate themselves in order to perform better. So I've also learned and seen, tested these environments, and these are the effects that these beliefs provoke in real life. So people, managers oriented more to theory X, we are going to see in their organizations that there are punishments, there is well-defined hierarchy, there are many rules, and there are there is lots of supervision, and so on. And on the other case, managers are more like facilitators, and they encourage people, even if they are wrong, they are going to reward people who learn from that, which is kind of different. So you see these 2 extremes, and of course, Agile is it's oriented more to the theory Y. I've also learned about the battle for control, and this is also the topic of my presentation. What does it mean? Well, here I give also, usually an example that I learned from parenting. So parents, they learn that it is not good to punish your child, it is not good to have too many rules, but when they have to practice and to apply what they learned in modern parenting at home, they are mostly incapable of doing it because kids are going to go wrong, they are going to do mistakes, and as a parent you don't know what to do, and it is better to avoid and say, okay, I don't know what to do, and you leave it like that, which is usually wrong, and worst, it's better to have more rules than not having any rule. This is also the same in agile environments. The purpose is not to have too many rules, but in any case, we cannot speak about no rules. We speak about a shared control. So for organizations that do their first steps, they initiate themselves in agile. For example, they start using Scrum. They're going to take the Scrum rules and say, this is how it is defined. We are going to apply them. So you have these rules, and the team does whatever they want using those rules. So in time, as teams learn, and they are mature, they develop themselves, they are going to change also these rules, and they are going to have less and less rules. And this is the moment when they change from self-organizing to self-government. And I've learned about empowerment. So that's very interesting. The same in parenting, the same in management. We tend to tell to our kids or our employees, okay, you are empowered. Now you can do it. Well, kids are going to do mistakes, and employees in the same time, because they are not used to have this power. They don't know how to do it, and they are used to do in a way. It's already a reflex, and they need to learn what to do with that power. So usually when we empower people, and that's it, usually nothing changes in a good way. So there is a path, a distance, in fact, between empowering and what we call responsibility. So here I have another example. I usually, when I coach teams, I ask them if they are responsible, and everyone says, yes, we are responsible. And that's normal, because you cannot say you're not responsible. Who's going to employ you anymore, right? So everyone is responsible. But when we talk about interesting practices, okay, how are you addressing this problem? Like the first requirement of software should be its capability to change, right? That problem from Martin Fowler that he said from reversible to irreversible, right? And they don't know what to say, and say, yeah, we heard about TDD, test-driven development, that's interesting, we'd like to do that. Can you please help us convince our clients that we need to do TDD, test-driven development? And the first question that came into my mind is, but you said you are responsible, right? If you are responsible for building the product and the quality that comes with it, it's your choice to make, right? That's being responsible. And that's very interesting to learn, because people are responsible only when they take decisions, they believe in their decisions. And I've learned about the game. Did you hear about the game theory? Yeah? So there is this game. There are many games. And I'm going to give you just an example. You have two people, A and B, and you give $10 to person A, and you tell you are going to do whatever you want with those money. You can keep them all, or you can give as much as you wish to the other guy. And in general, in average, they gave $2 or $3. And someone, an immigrant from India in the United States, said, if that it's true and we are altruists, how come nobody gave me money until now? How come I have this awful life and I had all these issues? And he is doing this exercise again and says, okay, have two people, A and B. A, you can give as much as you want to B, or you can take $1. And everyone took $1. So this is what we call the rules of the game. They are usually not written. They are out there. We play. We respect these rules. This gives the dynamics of the system, but we are not necessarily conscious about it. So the first thing we need to do is to make these rules obvious in a system. I'm going to give you an example. I apply this when I'm working with new clients and we negotiate. And he asks, for example, for a fixed price project in an agile fixed price project. And okay, I asked him what does it mean for him, and he says, well, first fixed scope, fixed budget, and fixed deadline. Okay, let's talk about it. Usually, when you have that, you must know what you earn and what you lose. So what I am doing is I'm making these rules obvious. For example, it's a fixed price. We assume risks, so that means you are going to have higher prices, right? You have fixed all these dimensions, okay? Scope, deadlines, budget. If you want to change something, we are going to negotiate. That makes us less flexible, less agile. Agile is all about changing, right? We cannot be agile just from one side. And third thing, and not the last, I think, when developers work, they learn. But when they learn something new, like they need to test in a new environment, they need to change something in their process, they are going to be discouraged to do that because they need to negotiate that before they do it, at least. They are going to say, we are not going to do it, it's a fixed price project. And who's losing, after all? So I'm making these rules obvious. And there is this guy, Nash, who died several weeks ago, who said that in games, we come too often in what we call in this balance where no player can move or progress if when he changes something in the game, if the others don't change in the same scope, in the same sense, well, his intentions will not apply, so he cannot win. I'm going to give you an example. This is from the global warming, for example. What will happen if China will not industrialize, will stop their process, their development process, so they will not pollute? Well, first thing they are going to think of is what will happen if the others don't stop, right? So this is the moment where nobody will stop. They are in this dynamics. And this happens also in organizations where people will not change because they might lose. Like, what will happen if I learn too much, or if I improve too much? Sorry, if I improve too much, and I will lose my job, right? And I've learned about visibility. Everyone heard about Post-its, right? Who's using them? Okay? So there must be also a reason why we do that, right? Who can help me? Why are we doing that? Sorry?
Create common image in everybody.
Okay. Okay. There are many good reasons, in fact, to do that, and that's one of it. Well, we call them boundary objects. And for example, accounting people, they are a community of practice, and programmers, developers, they are another community of practice. And they have their own language, their own tools, their own vocabulary. And when they work together on a project, we call that a community of interest. And they need to have some sort of bridge between them. This is one way of building that bridge, that common language, where we are, where they are, so that we can see what are their impediments, what are ours, what is the progress of our system, and so on. This is an example. I don't know if it's visible. And this is with my son. He had 3 years old here. So we had issues, at least that maybe it was not an issue for him, but for me. When I was coming back from work, he was expecting me to play a little bit more than the time we had left together. So I've seen that we cannot do more than 2 activities per day. And this is what we did. So we had these days, and when he comes home, he can do whatever. And when I come home, maximum 2 activities. And that changed completely our interactions, because suddenly he understood what a day means, what an activity means, and we were just moving the post-its from the day to done. And we came to something like this, which is a little bit familiar with the Kanban system, when we had all these to-dos, so activities, like, for example, in a 3 weeks time box, we had 4 post-its with Lego, so we can play Lego, 4 post-its with cartoons. We had many post-its of going out, and he could put in today whatever he wanted, but not more than 2. And in fact, that was what we call a shared control I was talking about earlier, right? So I gave him the basic rules, and he can do whatever he wants with it, with them, okay? And after 3 weeks, we reset the system, and we take everything from done again into to-do. And we came to this. My wife started to accept that. It's in our room. And so, as in agile development, right, you try to extend the spectrum of your improvements. So you start from a small process and you extend to bigger process. So this is what we actually have. This is what we have at work, right? And it's all about sharing the control with the others, right? We need to synchronize. And I had this question once: if those tools are so good, like you're using Microsoft Project Planning at work, right? Who's using that? Nobody. Ah, okay. So if that tool is so good, so great, I think we should use it also at home. If it doesn't work at home, why shall we pay those money at work, right? So this is a good way to guide ourselves throughout decisions. And what I'm saying here is that this might be, for example, a Scrum team, and we extend our area of improvements to other departments and so on in order to ensure that we improve through the entire value chain. And we build what we call the war room. So this is what empowered, responsible, self-organizing teams have. They are information radiators, and they tend to have around them all these things that radiate information, important information for them above all, in order to improve. So we are here, we want to be there, what are we going to change, and they take decisions. This empowers them to take decisions. So this is an example. So you have here the indicators like the release and sprint burn-down, the impediments, the team morale, holidays, the micro vision, like this is in the current sprint where we are. That's a roadmap, the product backlog, then trends and goals. Like during our retrospective, we decided to decrease the cyclomatic complexity from 10 to 8, right? I know, 12 to 7, that. But it's useful for them. And I've also learned about our experiences that builds convictions, and these convictions might not help us from time to time. For example, I don't have a driving license, and I use cabs very often. And once I left work, I took a cab, and I was knowing, I think, all the drivers at that company, and suddenly I observe that's a new driver. And I say, okay, we need to go to the kindergarten, but be aware, there is a street, small street, is not obvious, nobody knows about, and you have to take to the right at that moment. And he said, don't worry, it's okay. And of course, he will not take the right. And I said to him, you just missed it. And he says, I didn't know about it. Okay. When we have our heads full of ideas, that's very difficult. It's very difficult to make room for new ideas. And sometimes that is what we need to do. We need to clear our minds, unlearn what we have learned, and be ready to learn. Maybe you have seen people in trainings who go there and they speak more than the trainer. Right? That's a sign. There might be room for some improvement. And we can talk also about approximation. That was very interesting because it helped me a lot when I realized that there is always something that we miss. This is the result of an exercise that I do in the Scrum trainings. Have 5 teams, 5 people, and they are doing the same exercise all the time. I'm doing breaks whenever someone asks a question, and I'm answering to them. However, every time there is a different product as the result. Do you know why? It's in the title of the slide. Because we approximate. This is how our brain works. So when we see something, an object, and we don't see it completely, our brain will approximate, and we think we have seen it completely, entirely, but it's not true. This is something that our brain did, and we are not aware. And this is what happens when we work all the time, when we communicate. And this is why, for example, as a product owner, it's better to inspect frequently to ensure that what you have defined is really what you are going to get and to adapt. Just an example of applying this. And I've also learned a lot of conflicts. Conflicts management. This is an example I have, and it works perfectly at work and at home. I have 2 kids right now. One of 6 years old and the other one of 2 years and 4 months. And the older one comes to me and say, can we play with that? And I say, okay, but what will happen if Darius will come and break our stuff and our game? And he said, nothing. He's little, he will learn. And of course we started playing, and our younger boy came, he broke everything, and we laughed. But what would have happened if I would not prepare my son for these kind of situations? He would have gone wild, nervous, and it would not be a very pleasant situation. And that happens as a This happens also at work. I have an exercise when we play roles in conflictual situations. And there was this conflict when there is someone in the team who is concentrated, wants to concentrate, he cannot focus, and the other team members are noisy. And at one particular moment, the phone rings, and the one who wants to focus will go nervous and will speak awful, not nice anyway. And when we were discussing about how to resolve this conflict, everyone was speaking about forbidding phones, putting phones on silent, speaking with them, and so on. But whatever they were resolving, they were not treating what triggered the conflict. Because if it wasn't for the phone, it would have been something differently. So in this kind of situation, we need to teach people to learn their emotional states, their thoughts, and what they need to change in their thoughts and way of thinking in order to prevent these conflictual situations. And I've learned that within us, there is a continuous battle for control. And there is this definition of what sănătate, health, what mindful health means. And they say you should see your mind as a river, and you have all these thoughts. You are in the middle of the river, and you go either to one side of the river or the other, and one of it is rigidity and the other one is chaos. And you are healthy when you are in the middle. When you go to one side of the river, you are not in a mental health state. And this can be taught. Unfortunately, this is not what we have learned at school. This is not what we have at trainings at work. But it's the same. It's what we call emotional intelligence. And the hard thing about this is that we are not alone. It's not just our mind. It's the minds of everyone and our interactions that can amplify all these problems. And for this, we have another body of knowledge called social intelligence. And this can be, the good news about it is that it can be taught, learned, even late in our careers, even if the best age for that is between 5 and 7 years, when we are between 5 and 7 years old. Until now, do you have any questions? Okay. 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 So I'm going to make the conclusion now. My personal opinion is that when we learn about controlling ourselves, sharing controls with the others, improve our emotional intelligence, social intelligence, it's usually very difficult, especially when you do that in your current workplace, current life. And I think the greatest concern I have, and I had, is, isn't it more easier to change, to run from it? And I think that it's easy to change and to say when we are going to change the context, like we are going to quit our job and try it into another workplace, or quit our families and start a new family all over again, we think we can do it. In fact, we can't, because this requires skills that take a lot of time to be learned, and we are going to try, and it will not work, but in the new environment we need to prove. And when we need to prove, we are going to recidivate. So we are going to do what we did before, just because we need to prove. So I think that there are reasons why this presentation might be interesting for you, or you had written something or regarding my presentation, or you have concerns. There is something in your lives that might not be as in control as you wish. And when you try and it doesn't work, keep trying. Because there is a good reason you tried it. And expecting different results without changing anything, that's what we call madness. And there is this know how to call it. Shuhari is from martial arts. They call it some sort of maturity levels. And at the first stage, you are going to do many things wrong, and the other people are going to notice that, and they are going to say, hey, don't worry, you just read a book, you are going to go back to normal in a few days. And it's very difficult. However, if we keep trying, we are going to achieve another stage. Now, this is where I think I am right now. And there is a lot of room for improvement. At the latest stage of this development, this is where things are unconscious reflexes. We already know how to control, share control with the others, resolve conflictual situations without really thinking about it. So it's a long path, but it's a very interesting one, and I've seen the fruits of it, and I hope you will enjoy it also. This is it. Thank you.
And they may be wrong. So first of all, it seems for me that this is a scaling down in terms of people soft skills. So you took the worst assumption upon a people and you want to control. And I suppose that most of us work here in software development and in creative activities where you must create something. Why do you want to put control instead of leadership, instead of giving the overview to the people in such a manner that they will empower themselves, not motivating themselves, but they empower themselves? You plant that seed of curiosity for doing things, for creating something. Why just control? Control, it's a definition for something that you want to limit. You want to limit to move from that point to that point, even if it is better or worse. Just giving that margin, with that margins in control.
Okay. Hello? Not working? Maybe this one? So, the whole idea of sharing the control is not about not listening to people, is not about limiting their will, but to establish the right borders which are fruitful for us as an environment in order to cooperate, even stimulate creativity, innovation, and so on. So, for example, I have this question all the time: isn't that going to kill my child's ability to create? Like having this discipline, right? I think it's wrong, because control doesn't mean limiting free will or stopping them from thinking. And there are practices that encourage that. For example, Yeah, but it's a shared control. We agree, both of us, right? So for example, in order to calibrate ourselves, to achieve a goal, these are the rules that we agree upon. And we learn, we change the rules if we want. We agree, but they are explicit policies. I'm going to give an example with my son. He came to me and said once, well, I don't like doing bath every day, right? And I said, okay, how often you would like to do it? And he said, I would never like to do it. And how are you going to ensure you don't stink, you are not going to be sick, and so on? And we discussed about that, and himself decided that it's good, but he was not agreeing with the time when we were doing it. So we changed the time, so before sleeping to when he came home, at home. It was his decisions, but we need to be synchronized. I'm giving another example with my wife. That's another question. They say, hey, this will kill the creativity in a relationship. No, actually we have expectations from one another, and we need to communicate. And without explicit rules or being attentive to ourselves and our communication and our expectations, we are disappointed. And I can have a week, I'm not doing anything that my wife expects, and she will be disappointed. And I'm interested in being synchronized with her. So we are doing this weekly planning where we are going to say, what are you going to do this week? What are our current needs? What are the needs of our children? And so on. And we plan. We can change them. As in Agile, right? We are not going to keep to that just because we planned it. And we are going to do it. And it's better because it allows us to calibrate ourselves and not to disappoint the other. I think the main issue is the word control here. For example, if we have a daily meeting, that's a rule. How is that going to prevent us from doing whatever we want? For example, we have a goal, right, as a team, and we have a daily in order to synchronize ourselves, like what we did yesterday or since the last synchronization to achieve that goal. What are we going to do until the next one? And what are we going to, if we have any impediments, okay? Something that prevents us achieving that goal. How is that preventing us from creating? How is that preventing us from having new ideas? But you have the entire day to do that. You can have new ideas. There's not a daily meeting who's going to prevent you that. If it requires more time, you just say it. I will need more time, and that's it. It's not the daily meeting who's going to prevent you. But just a question, how is that going to help a daily meeting? Well, for example, if you have a problem, and when you tell it to the others might help you with new ideas, right? It ensures there is at least a synchronization point when you can get help. It's not about the skills. It's about the goal. If you have a common goal, maybe a daily synchronization might worth. Maybe. Maybe not. If you don't have a common goal, I don't see the purpose of doing a daily. Right. So you have a common project or a common goal? Okay, maybe then the daily is useful.
The idea is, what are the benefits in terms of not increasing productivity? What are the benefits in terms of keeping people involved inside the company, where you have enough distribution in work and in management, not in control, in management. So you have somehow possibilities to see where everyone is in terms with its goals and with its tasks, and regarding on that feedback, you could approach different strategies in terms to enrich. So not necessarily leaning the process, but improve in the points. So not leaning in terms of, okay, we have some people with 100% productivity, some people with 20% productivity, and after we lean, everybody has 60% productivity. So
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Did you see productivity 60%, 100%? I didn't. Did I say that? No. But if the team considers that might be useful for them and agrees on that, why not? But that's not what I mean by control. Okay?
I think this is a perfect topic to continue at Berăria Hash, at the after party. You are invited. And with this, we are closing today's cloud track with DevTalks 2015. We thank everybody who stayed in the room until this late hour for their presence, and we hope you have had a fruitful day full of learning experiences. And those of you who have not heard about it, there is the schedule that you have received when you entered the room, which you can complete with your name and note speakers' presentations. And you can have a chance to win some prizes like a YubiKey. So do that. And we thank you again for your presence and participation here, and we are waiting for you next year at DevTalks 2016, I hope. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.